Hi, I'm Janelle Benjamin, CEO and founder of All Things Equitable, and I'm happy to be here with you today to have another episode of White and Woke at Work. I'm here today with Tony Shifflet. He is an engineering student, a mechanical engineering student at Eastern Michigan, and I'm happy to have him on. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Janelle, for having me on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So this is, of course, our show where we talk about the things that white people are doing to be actively anti-racist in their sphere of influence. And Tony and I, we ran into each other on LinkedIn, as I have with all the other professionals that I've been kind of highlighting and profiling through this series. And you've been really active on the platform, Tony. Um,
Yeah, to a point.
to a point. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've been telling it like it is and sharing your views on all kinds of things, from police brutality to LinkedIn suppressing voices. Why don't you tell
hmm
me a little bit about, what makes you so vocal?
Honestly, I've noticed all the injustices that have had been going on over the years, and I've I've been kind of just sitting in the background and just talking with my wife about it, and um, just haven't been real vocal outside of the family. And I realized that, I can be doing a whole lot more than just having the conversations and saying how awful these things are, just with my family.
Yeah.
And I actually got back on LinkedIn not too long ago. I had actually taken a break from it just because it was getting to the point where um, things were starting to get out of hand with some of the things that were going on the platform. And I just kind of said, I don't want to deal with it. But um, now I've really noticed, and I've really kind of, just like you said, like woken up to the point that I've seen so much, and I feel like I need to just kind of put myself out there and speak for what I think is right and what I feel is right in my heart. And there has been, plenty of conversations with my wife and I about this, and is this the right thing to be doing? Um, and I have tried to reiterate to her. I said, there is something to be said about somebody that sits back and does nothing, and then there's something to be said for the ones that step up and say, hey, there are things that are wrong that we can have an impact on if we just voice our concerns and how we feel about it from a white privilege side.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something for me that I had a really hard time accepting, was that I had white privilege. And I never really quite understood it until earlier this year when I was confronted with some other people on LinkedIn, and like, you need to take a step back and actually figure it out, that you are privileged and here's the reasons why. It's really unfortunate that people had to tell me why I was privileged. Um, but I did some soul searching, and with those conversations with my wife and my family, um, I felt like this was the right thing to do, and really to come forward and you know demand that we be better. We
That
all
is
have to be better.
that is actually awesome. So was that like post George Floyd or was it before?
Um, it started before George Floyd. Um, I would say that it probably started with Ahmaud Arbery,
Yeah.
and it was just a few days before my birthday. And I remember just thinking to myself, it's like, this is just awful. And talking with my wife and talking with my family, it's my heart sank. And it was what, 3 weeks later when Breonna Taylor was murdered. And it's like, okay, something's got to be done. And that's when I really decided, okay, I really need to get up and start using my voice and get back on LinkedIn. And because we're seeing it in all levels, it's not just in the workplace. It's everywhere. It's systemic. It's deeply rooted in this country. It's a it's a global issue.
For sure.
It's not just here in the States, but it's it's getting bad. It's getting really bad.
Yeah.
And I just,
I mean, for
my
sure.
heart,
It's here in Canada too. So it is
yeah.
definitely global. Wherever you've got police. in the world, you've got police brutality, pretty much.
And that's something else that I've noticed. There are people that have reached out to me on LinkedIn and, have gotten to the point like, hey, can we tag you in this post, about police brutality in the UK? There was one from somebody from Berlin. I don't remember their names. But these people are reaching out to me, and it's like, well, why me?
Yeah.
But it seems like I'm starting to make an impact, which is a good thing. So
That's awesome. Are these white people that are reaching out?
white and black people, white and black
Wow,
people.
that is
So,
awesome. I mean,
and
clearly your
I'm,
voice is having an effect if people are reaching out to you from all over the place, right?
yeah, and that kind of gives me that, all right, I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and what I'm doing is actually making an impact, and I'm not gonna lie, it's pissing some people off.
Yeah.
Um, um, but sometimes those people need to get pissed off and really maybe take a step back, and go, wow, he's right, or wow, I never thought about this, or wow, what I said was really racist, and and how you behave and how you conduct yourself says a whole lot. And when it's put out there on the internet like that, and it's put on these social media platforms, it's really easy to pick the people out that are your racists and your white supremacists. And I've been calling them out, and some people don't like it, but
Yeah.
ultimately we all need to be better. And I know that I made my mistakes in the past, and I'm still owning up to a lot of the things that are coming to light, coming to fruition. And I just, yeah, I definitely did that. I made that mistake. I own it. I screwed up, and trust me, I was not a saint. I was not a saint growing up.
Yeah.
I, joked around with the people that made the racist jokes. I laughed at them. I didn't really condone them at first. I knew it was wrong, but it it wasn't something where I felt like I needed to say something, because I lived in a town that was heavily racist, and
Mhm.
technically speaking, I moved back here to be closer to family. But I'm more aware of it now, and when I see it, I stop it. I
So,
don't. Yeah, I just won't accept it anymore. So,
so
and
talking to me, I guess, about your approach then, like when you say you're calling them out, you find that that is working to persuade them to change their views, or is it, is there a lot of like, negative banter back and forth where they're just rejecting what you're saying and you're kind of spending time fighting? Are you are you educating, and are they changing, or for the better, or are they just, holding fast to their positions?
it honestly depends on the person.
Yeah.
I've realized that there are people that come out in straight attack mode, and some of those people you're just not going to get through to. You can
Yeah.
explain to them how you feel, and explain, what they're doing is wrong, why it's wrong, and sometimes I get a lot of pushback for it. And if they're not going to listen, I try to give them articles of information for them to go and educate themselves.
Yeah.
There are times that I just will take the words right out of an article and just say, listen, this is what this says, and I believe this, the stats and the data,
Yeah.
and what you're saying just doesn't line up with this. And you can have your beliefs,
Hmm.
but ultimately it's, when you're racist, you're racist.
Yeah.
When you're white supremacist, you're a white supremacist. And um, I do get a lot of pushback.
Hmm.
There are those that do eventually come around, and people that have reached out to me and said, you were right. And I'll get, personal messages on my notifications that'll say, hey, I didn't want to put this out there on LinkedIn. I figured I'd just talk to you one-on-one, because there might be some heated, comment or, discussion going on in some thread that it's getting to a point where someone's like, can be, okay, we're going to have to block these people.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get to a point again where I'm blocked on LinkedIn for speaking up and calling people out.
Yeah.
So, there are times that people will just message me and say, hey, listen, I'm really sorry about this. I can see where you're coming from. Here's my, you know, my approach, and here's my opinions. And then a lot of the time, I'll exchange a phone number with them and we'll have a conversation. And we'll talk for 30, 40 minutes about a topic. And then we both walk away knowing where we both stand. And there's a respect, I guess you want to say. And I noticed that those people go back and remove their comments or edit their comments to not come off as someone who is racist, you know, bigoted or sexist. And this is also, this is bigger than just, you know, the racism and the white supremacy. It's a lot of the isms are, you know, being focused on too, you know, with this. So, yeah, it's
For sure. Yeah. You're seeing, you know, sexism, misogyny, you're seeing xenophobia, like the works.
yeah, I mean, you know, all the way up and down the ladder, you know, and if I see it and I know it's wrong, I'm going to say something. And I don't necessarily feel like I need to go out and troll and, you know, police LinkedIn. But I put out the information out there that I feel is important and is pertinent to the issues. And if people want to stop in and make a comment, great. If people want to stop in and troll and, you know, kind of, you know, almost like go toe to toe type deal. It's like, listen, this isn't what this is for. If you can't see what the post is for what it is and accept it and either educate yourself or let me help you to get educated, then, you know.
I mean, it's tough for people to hear that, you know, they might not be as necessarily educated on a topic, right? Like you start off,
absolutely.
right? Or that I've got privilege, right? Like a lot of white people, like I've had this conversation with too, even on different platforms like Facebook or what have you. You know, they're really offended the moment you say, you know, you've got white privilege. It's like, wait a second, I didn't grow up with this or that or the other. You know, I work hard, or my family's worked hard, and their backs are already up. So you know, it's how do we strike a balance between, you know, giving them the information and not insulting them and saying, you know, you're an uneducated bigot.
I am not tactful, and my wife Elena has told me that time and time again. She said your approach sucks.
It's hard to be tactful because you just want to shake them, right?
Yeah, it's just like, what are you doing? But it's just sometimes it's easy if you can see their comments and you can try to put yourself in their shoes, and that's something that I have really tried to grow into, is being really empathetic. And you know, just putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, seeing and feeling, or at least trying to see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And when it's done in a PC way and it's done tactfully, it's a lot easier to have conversations with people. But when people come out swinging, you know, that's the first thing you kind of want to do is, you know.
But we know where people are coming from, like Tony, like we know they're coming from this, you know, this place of, you know, I'm not racist, or, you know, or they want to protect their, you know, what they have, right? Or what they feel they've earned or worked for, or what their ancestors have passed down. Like they just want to hold on to it. And so
they just put up these, you know, barriers, and they put up, you know, walls, and they just get angry. It's like, no, just bring it down. Bring it down a little bit.
Yeah. So what makes you, I mean, what really, I guess, made you wake up? Like, was it just one person's comment, and did somebody take that approach with you, where, you know, you said you previously didn't recognize your privilege, and then all of a sudden you recognize, you saw the light. So like, what was it, an article that you read? Like, really, what turned the light on for you?
Honestly, it was two men on LinkedIn. And we had quite a lengthy back and forth about white privilege.
Okay.
And I'll keep those guys nameless.
Yeah.
You guys can find it on LinkedIn, I'm sure, if you were really interested. But we had this long conversation, this long back and forth for probably 3 or 4 days.
Wow.
About white privilege and what it means, and going back into systemic racism. I mean, we're talking 300-400 years, you know, in the in the history and the making of what is now the United States. And I was just in this mode of just straight up denial.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you should really just kind of take a step back and just do some soul searching. And because I pissed a lot of people off, and some of those people are really good connections of mine, and we have conversations, outside of LinkedIn that are just about life in general.
Wait. You pissed them off because you were ignorant and you didn't believe you had privilege?
Ignorant.
Okay.
Very ignorant.
Okay.
Very ignorant. And even though I was in that mode of like, all right, I need to use my voice, I need to, get on this platform. The first step should have been me acknowledging the fact that I indeed am privileged, because I am white. And it's really hard to fight a battle if you can't do self-reflection first and realize that I'm part of the problem.
Yeah.
And if I want to be part of the solution, I have to fix what's wrong with me first. And I mean, and this is on a, even bigger level than just what we're talking about here.
Yeah. That's why I'm dwelling on it, because it's so important, right? Like
it's ridiculously important.
Where you were in like totally like holding fast to your position and just adamant that I don't have privilege. So many people are there with the blinders on, and they don't cross to the other side. Like they're still there. And it's like, how do we get that light turned on for them?
It's like you need to go in there with one of those what do they call those big cement breakers, and chisel people out of them, because people are literally cemented in this mind, frame that I'm not privileged. Yeah, I'm white, but I'm not privileged. I didn't do any of the stuff that happened to, the Black community, 200, 300 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't part of the problem back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, or whatever.
Yeah.
But by not saying anything, by not being the anti-racist and just sitting back and just keeping your mouth shut, that says a whole lot.
For sure.
Your silence says a whole lot.
So let me get this right. Ahmaud Arbery happens. You are, ready to speak out. You know that this is wrong, but still, you're on the platform, still holding fast to your white privilege. And are you on the journey to anti-racism, or you're not even there yet? Like, when did the journey
I think that my journey into anti-racism really started, I mean, in that probably three week time frame was really when I just kind of flipped the script.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've always had this passion for righting the wrongs and for speaking out against things that I felt very strongly about.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I've lost jobs because of it.
Yeah.
Which has not been good, obviously.
Yeah.
But I see injustices, and I see things that aren't right in the way people are doing things. And I have always felt this need to just come out and say, that's wrong. You're
a principled person.
I am. Yeah. And it's like a double-edged sword. That's something that my wife's been telling me. A lot of these things go back to conversations with my wife and I. I mean, she's extremely smart. She is, she can see the big picture, and she can see both sides, or all sides to every, story.
Yeah. Is she anti-racist like you?
What's that?
Is she anti-racist like you?
Yes. She doesn't speak out as much as I do. And I don't blame her. And that's because she does actually work. Right now, like I said, I'm not working. I'm just a full-time student.
Yeah.
But her and I are quite anti-racist, and I am more the vocal one, whereas she's kind of more of the support.
Yeah. I mean, part of why I'm doing this, Anthony, is really to get people to have that comfort level, to be able to speak out in their spheres of influence, particularly in the workplace. And what you're touching on has been like a common thread throughout this series is that, you know, where people are self-employed, where they're, you know, like, or yourself, you're just a student in school, you're not beholden to an employer. It is a lot easier for you to be able to use your voice. So, I mean, that says a lot about oppression in the workplace, just workplaces
Oh,
generally,
absolutely.
right? The fact that people
Absolutely.
are, like your wife, are not able to speak out about how, about their very principled beliefs,
Hmm.
is highly problematic. I think it's something that workplaces as a whole definitely need to address, and get, you know, their employees to a comfort level where they can be their authentic selves, right? Because if you
Yeah.
can't feel, you know, strongly and passionately, and then and use your voice to change things for people in society, you know, because you're fearful of the consequences in your workplace, like that's just
The, the retaliation.
the retaliation is so ridiculous.
And you know, that's why so many people in businesses don't speak up, because they feel oppressed and they feel like they can't express their feelings without getting retaliated
But it's
against.
interesting too, like on one hand you have the people who feel like, you know, I can't speak up. I'm passionate about issues of anti-racism, and I want to speak up, but I can't. But then you've also, on the other side of the coin, you've got
Is it
these
can't or won't?
can't, or both, but then you've got these
Right.
people who are, you know, actively, like really vocal. They are clearly racist. Their title, their see, you know, their workplace is, you know, front and center, and they're saying these
They
horrific
don't hide
things.
it.
They don't hide it. They're saying these
Mm-mm.
horrific things. So they have the freedom, right? The people who are perhaps white supremacist, racist, bigoted, misogynistic, you name it, they
All the
have
above.
all
Hmm.
of the above. They feel free, right? Whereas people who you know, are on the side of fairness and equity, you know, they're the ones who feel silenced at this time. And so, yeah, for me, it's just, it's,
Very, very targeted, and it's happening on LinkedIn.
yeah, too
I mean,
much.
we have seen so many comments that what you would think would go against LinkedIn policies, you know, their community guidelines and whatnot.
Yeah.
And yet some of the things that continue to stay up, even after they go on and they've been reported and, you know, documented and
Mhm.
emailed to, you know, their help centers
Yeah.
and CEO of LinkedIn, the comments still stay up.
Right.
Yet when we speak out against them, we get silenced.
What we were
And it's,
seeing there is totally indicative of just society generally, right? Where
oh
you've got
yeah,
human resources and legal, they come together and they put out a statement and they say, you know, our policies are this, or we'd never do that, but they're never doing the self-reflection, like you said, for yourself to say, okay,
hmm,
what is it that we are actually doing? Do we need to revise our policies or revisit our policies, right? Instead of defending what's in place to say, well, we're not doing it, and being defensive, like you said yourself that you were originally, it is
hmm.
about doing that kind of self-reflection, and saying and taking a look and taking stock at what your own behaviors are. And LinkedIn, I mean, I'm not singling them out for sure, but they are indicative of a lot of organizations, and that's the processes I think that need to change to make things
And
better for people.
yeah, and to kind of tag along with that, there's a lot of, okay, saying that we're going to go and do these things and saying that we're going to go back and review these, but saying is one thing. Going out and actually doing it and putting forth, you know, the actions to change and actually implement things
Yeah.
and hold people to standards is something completely different.
For sure.
And it's there. Most of the social media platforms, it's not just LinkedIn, are not following through with things that they're saying that they're going to do or
Mhm.
that they have promised that they're going to do. I've received emails from LinkedIn saying that we are going to, you know, take a look at our policies and make changes and whatnot. And yeah, here we are, you know, Black, Indigenous people of color, um, white people that are speaking out against these things, you know, are still being silenced for calling the other issues out. And the other issues, you know, the racist remarks, the white supremacy, the discrimination towards women, the bigotry, the, you know, the sexism, all of that is still on the platform.
Yeah.
And it's a slap in the face. And it's people are getting kicked off LinkedIn, for it. Some really good, friends that I think that are friends of mine.
Yeah.
Chandra Hardy, Colin Jameson, people that are megaphones, literally, anti-racists, and they're being silenced, and it's just not okay. I read that New York Times article last week
Yeah.
with Future Kane and Elizabeth.
Liba.
Yeah, Liba. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Madison Butler, and it's like, okay, so when is it that LinkedIn is actually going to do something? Because it's front and center here. It's out in the public. It's not just people now, single people emailing them saying, "Hey, this is a problem."
Mm-hmm.
This is headline news.
For sure.
This is an issue. Fix it. I just
For
don't know if
sure.
and when they're going to do that, but they need to.
Yeah, I don't know how we get these organizations to hear us and change
Right.
their policies unless we just keep applying the pressure. So I
Right.
appreciate you being one of those active voices. But I'm curious to know a little bit more about, I guess, your background, I guess, beforehand. Did you come from like racist straights? What was your family like growing up, and your high school, college years? What was all that like?
Well, college years are just this last year. I started back in January, but I actually grew up outside of Detroit in a town called Livonia.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you know where that is.
I do, yeah.
Livonia, Redford area, and it was a pretty diverse area.
Mm-hmm.
But we moved out to Howell, out to the country, when I was like 9 or 10,
Okay.
and Black people were pretty much non-existent out here. Excuse me. Lots of farmland, lots of there's a chapter of the KKK here
Whoa.
that's still active. Yeah, we would go out at night and go to McDonald's and get some ice cream, and we would see the rallies and the trucks parked in.
Were you ever? Did they try to recruit you?
No, no.
Oh, they're not actively recruiting.
No, well, if they are, they're not coming for me, and so. But we would see the crosses, burning in the backs of the cornfields. We'd see all the Confederate flags out.
Wow.
And it was scary. I think in my graduating class, we may have had 2 or 3 Black kids in there.
Wow.
So, and honestly, I didn't really have any, Black friends or any people of color for that matter, that were friends of mine in Howell.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I joined the Navy where I realized the world is much more diverse than where I grew up. There are some people in my family that are racist, not as outspoken as some, but they have made it very clear, in their stance on certain topics that's just where they're at.
So are you trying actively to persuade them otherwise, just like you are on the platform, or are you just kind of leaving some of them be?
Yes and no. Yes, and the fact when we do have our conversations, when we have our family, holidays and things like that, I'm sure that's, what's been going on this last year is all going to come, to the table at, Thanksgiving or whatnot. But I talk with my family on a regular basis about it.
Yeah.
With my parents, with my wife, my sister. It's really the extended family that it's where the racism lies. And I don't see them as much as I probably should. Just because they're out of state and they don't really come to Michigan all that much. And having a wife and 2 kids, we don't get to really travel and, get time
did you
away.
hold their views growing up all that time, or were you,
No.
or did you always recognize that you were different? Did you always feel like, if you hear the
I felt there was something yeah, yeah. I felt like when I was around extended family like that, and there would be those, racist jokes or, the racist comments, or the privileged comments, like, you kind of get that stomach turning, like, this, I don't feel comfortable,
Yeah.
with this. But I wouldn't say anything. I was younger,
Yeah.
and, I didn't feel like I really had a voice.
Mm-hmm.
So I just play along, because that's what family members do. You play along. It's not okay.
Yeah.
Um, but it's it's time that we start having these uncomfortable conversations, and pointing out, like, listen, I'm not going to put up with it anymore.
Yeah. I
And
literally just had that conversation with Maggie, who's also uh
mhm,
part of the series. And she also, she spoke directly to her family, and now she's, at dinner tables calling out her relatives because, she's no longer okay sitting quietly. And Sally Casterton also mentioned it as well, in her interview, just about, being young and
excuse me.
feeling like, you don't have a voice and you can't contribute when your family members are saying things that are quite offensive because of your age. um the respect issue, right? You got to respect your elders and speak when spoken to and not
Right,
intervene. But I think as people they get older, they get more, bold and brave, they can speak out and use their voice in a lot more of an effective way.
right. And to kind of also piggyback on that, the more educated you are, and the more you can actually come to these conversations and come to the table and have an open-ended conversation, dialogue, and be able to express yourself in ways, um, that maybe your family members can appreciate, and not just kind of throw you on the, back burner and say, yeah, be quiet, just like you said, speak when spoken to type
Right.
deal.
Yeah.
It's I found out I found that in the workplace, it was much easier for me to say something, um, to my coworkers than it was to speak to my family.
Hmm.
So, when I heard some of the comments that were going on inside a workplace where I worked about 4 years ago, it was easier for me to have a say, hey, don't talk like that around me. I don't want to hear that. And you can take that, and I just I just don't want to be affiliated with it.
Yeah.
But it was easier to do that than it was to speak to my family. I would just kind of keep my mouth shut, and
Because our
that.
families are closer to us, and I think there's greater consequences sometimes when they're in our very, very close circles, as opposed to,
Oh, absolutely.
right, in the work environment. I mean, there's supposed to be policies and things to prevent that type of thing from happening. So I can see where, you know you can kind of shut it down. You have a framework from which to say, okay, I don't need to hear this, I don't need to tolerate this. But at home, there's not that, right?
Right. Right. No, it's not. There is more opinions that kind of get floated around, uh, in family, in families, and people can have more heated discussions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when you speak out against them, you find that sometimes these people end up blocking you out of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And what when you love and care about them, you don't ever want that to happen, right? And you don't want to disappoint your family.
Yeah.
So I can see, why that would be
For
such an
sure.
issue.
So what's next for you, Tony, on your journey to anti-racism? And I guess once you graduate from school, what do you plan to do?
Well, on this journey right now, I would like to, take it to a point where it's more so not on social media platforms. I mean, I still want to be able to use my voice like I am,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to do more in the community. I want to, be an advocate, not just, strictly on a social media platform,
Yeah.
or LinkedIn, because, and to be quite honest, LinkedIn may not be the greatest place to be doing this,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a platform where these issues are heavily rooted.
Yeah.
So I do feel like I need to, keep doing as much as I can with my voice on that platform.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely want to get out and make an impact in the community and take it up. I don't want to say bring up the intensity.
Yeah.
But I feel like more still needs to be done. And there are more like-minded people like me, especially in this neighborhood that we moved into a couple years ago.
Yeah.
That are all about the Black Lives Matter, anti-racists, and that want to get out and do more as well. So I look forward to that, and I hope we can get to a point where I feel more comfortable, because my family's, that's like one of my biggest concerns and my biggest fears
Mm-hmm.
is my family safety.
Yeah.
And I know the world that we live in is crazy as hell, and I don't want to put them in jeopardy anymore. Obviously I'm using this platform. I'm out there, I'm calling people out, but I want to make sure first and foremost that my family is safe and they feel okay and comfortable with me moving up to the next level, as long as I just keep that tactical approach and being PC. So that's kind of where I see myself going.
Well, I look forward to seeing what you do next. I'm so glad that we connected, Tony. And
Absolutely,
I
Janelle.
hope that you would come back on a future episode and chat with
Oh
me.
yeah, we should get us all together and have a
That,
big old Zoom party.
that would be awesome. So if
No,
any of the viewers would love to connect with Tony, he's obviously available on LinkedIn at Tony Shifflet. That's Shifflet. And I'm Janelle Benjamin signing off. You can reach me at JB_Equitable on Twitter or at allthingsequitable.ca. I look forward to doing another episode, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks so much,
bye.
Tony.
Thank you so much, Janelle. It was awesome.
Awesome.